What's going on, everyone? It's Friday afternoon right here, and it's time for some Grillin' Torah. You know, we heard some horrible news this morning of Muslim terrorists who are also Israeli civilians who went up on the Temple Mount with automatic weapons and fired and murdered two Druze policemen. So we're on the rebound of that right now. So things are a little bit tough right now. And the two guys who were killed, the two policemen who were killed, hey Larry, how you doing? Were Druze. And yet they were heroes of Israel. The people who were loyal to Israel. And they are the perfect example about what peace is all about. So this Grillin' Torah, I'll do it in the memory of these two guys who were real friends of Israel, real heroes of Israel. And so I'm giving this Grillin' Torah in their memory. All right, a little bit difficult. It really is difficult. You know, as someone who's been in the army and been there and lost friends and had to bury them and been to their funerals, it's very, very difficult because I know what their friends are going through now and I know what their family is going through. One of the one of the policemen just had a baby 3 months ago. His baby's 3 months old. 3-month-old orphan. We're not going to discuss this right now. I did it in a video before, so I don't want to discuss it again. I want to say hello to everyone who Karen, how you doing? Kelly, nice to see you here. And everybody, please do invite your friends and family in. We have a little bit of Torah for this week. Pinchas, very, very strange story. And the question has to be asked whenever we read one of these strange stories in the Torah is what's the lesson to be learned? In other words, what do we learn? The Torah is not a storybook. Everything's a lesson for life. So, Bnei Israel, the nation of Israel, is on their way into the land of Israel. And the Midianites, I don't know what they call it in English, the Midianim, were aiming to destroy Bnei Israel. And Charleston, South Carolina, hey, what's going on? So before I do that, let me just I promised I'd invite some people. And by the way, everyone who's watching, instead of having me invite you each time, all you got to do is subscribe, and then it'll come up as a notification. So let me just invite the people who I promised I would invite, because people actually got upset with me. They said, how come you don't invite me to your streams? I said, I just hit the random invites. But if you're here and you want to watch in the future, do me a favor and just subscribe, all right? I don't want to have any hard feelings by anyone. All right, let's go. All right, so let's get to the 20 people on. All right, everyone here, again, share it away and invite some people on to get some Torah. Okay, so this week's Parshat is really strange. Bnei Israel, the nation of Israel, are on their way into the land of Israel, and these Midianites are trying to destroy us. Ronnie, how are you? Nice to see you here. Sergey, nice to see you here. Michael. And the funny thing is, how do they want to destroy us? They're not shooting missiles at us. They weren't firing guns at us. They weren't bringing guns up to the Temple Mount and murdering people. They were doing just the opposite. Hey, Rita, how you doing? What were they doing? They wanted to actually become part of it. Well, not really want to become part of it. They wanted to make us fall on relations. And so they were trying to pervert our ways and make us have relations that aren't allowed to be had. And one of the people of Israel, one of the Jewish people, was having these relations in public, and everyone was stunned. How could you do that? And Pinchas, who is a priest, took a spear and stabbed both of them. And the first pasuk of the Parshat says, "Heshivet chametim ad bnei Yisrael." Kadosh Baruch Hu says, God says that He settled my anger towards the nation of Israel. In other words, by killing these two people, one of the Jew and the other the Midianite, who were doing indecent acts in public, by killing them, God says He calmed. It's not really, it's parable. Calmed my anger towards Bnei Israel. And the blessings that Pinchas gets is called the blessing of peace, Birkat Shalom. And it's through this act of killing, peace came about. And the question is, how is that possible, number one? Number two, what is to learn from that? Should we take the laws into our own hands when we see something that's immoral? What are we to learn from this? And how does the Torah at all look at peace? What is peace according to the Torah? You know, I have debates every Thursday on live TV in Tel Aviv with Uri Zaki, a friend of mine who's from the left end of this political spectrum. And we talk about peace, and the writings always go, you guys don't want peace. Why? Because they're making a deal with the Arabs, saying let's give them guns and power and land. And I say no, so they're the peace activists, and I'm the guy who wants war. And I said, no, you got it all backwards. Every time you make a deal with them, more people are killed, both Jews and Arabs. Your idea of peace is perverted. It doesn't work. And not because you're a bad person. You got the right idea, but the wrong recipe, right? I really want to make a great meal, but I can't cook. I'm going to make a mess. So peace is not only about giving a title of peace. The truth of the matter is, shalom, the word shalom is one of God's names in Judaism. So we are all about peace. The question is, what is the ingredients for peace? And how is it possible that Pinchas can kill two people, one Jew even, and that could be called peace? And again, what are the lessons? So, Hashalom v'emet yahavu, peace and truth should be loved. Okay? Peace has got to start with truth. What was happening is not just the indecent things that were going on there. That's not what's being challenged, right? Because if they were doing it in their own house, again, there would be punishment within a court case. This was done in public. What was being challenged here? The morality was being challenged. In other words, the idea that these two people are coming actually to the Mishkan, to where the Holy of Holies in the desert was, and doing that there in front of Moshe Rabbeinu, in front of Moses, and showing a point, look at us. Pinchas did not only kill the people, he killed that immorality. Now, here's the problem. People can take this to the wrong. A couple of years ago, in the gay parade in Jerusalem, some guys killed someone. That is not what the story is, people. There was no hatred. It never said that he hated these people. Okay? And no, we don't have permission to do that today. But the question is, what did Pinchas exactly do? So things were getting blurred. Morality was getting blurred. And what Pinchas was actually doing was stopping it dead in its tracks. It's not that this was just one person who was doing it and therefore everybody else and just killed this person. No. He stopped immorality in its tracks. So the point is that he wasn't even fighting these two people. What were they doing was immoral, but that wasn't the point. The point here was he's got to stop the immorality. And why was peace given? Some of the sages say peace was given to him because of this act of killing, right? So you can get into a rut and say, oh, I should kill all the time when I disagree with people. And no, the blessings of peace, according to some of the explanations, was he needed that blessing of peace, lest he think that he can do it to everybody who does something wrong. That's not the way. Like my father always says, kill them with kindness. You want to educate people. You want to teach people. You want to show them things that are right. Abba, you just signed on. I just quoted you. It's kill them with kindness, right? So how is it possible that Pinchas, who physically killed people, is given the blessings of peace? Well, like I said, there's one opinion that says giving him the blessing of peace because when he killed someone, we don't want that going on over and over again, killing people. So that was giving the blessing of peace of not to do it again. But again, the point is, it wasn't against. He didn't do it out of anger. Those two people, I'm going to kill. I'm going to show them. No. It wasn't even a war against these two people. It was a war for morality. And the idea is very difficult to understand today. We do not have permission to do such a thing today. End of story. Don't think for a second that anyone's getting ideas from here. Okay? Pinchas, when he killed those two people, he was not killing with ego. He didn't kill with anger or even with jealousy or with hatred or with anything else. He was talking only about morality. He wasn't killing, and again, he wasn't killing people because they were immoral. He was trying to cut down the blurring of morality in total. And so what happened afterwards, it stopped. There was no more of this stuff. People caught on. They understood what was going on here. Very dangerous, though, because people think they can do that today. No way. You're not allowed to do that today. Not allowed to do it today at all. There's no permission to do such things today. All right? But when it comes, let's talk about the definition of peace for 1 second. What can we learn from here? So we can learn from here is peace is not only about feeling good and getting along and not fighting. Sometimes you have to fight. There's a time for peace and there's a time for war. And if you, at any point in time, make peace when it's time for war, you are immoral. Perfect example that you always mention is Chamberlain. Chamberlain making peace with Hitler. That is not peace, that's immoral. And it's immoral because you're making peace with evil. You're giving them a moral leg to stand on. That is not peace. Peace has to be defined by truth. Okay? And like I said before, and Judaism says, obviously, somebody who has pity on the cruel, they will end up being cruel to those who deserve compassion. I'm going to give you the perfect example. Perfect example. There's a electricity crisis right now in Gaza. Right? They say they only have 4 hours of electricity a day. I don't know because I'm not there. And they're blaming Israel for it. Now, Israel, right? We have compassion for too many people sometimes. And we forgave, I don't know, a couple $100 million. They have a $2 billion debt, by the way, on their electricity. And they're pointing fingers at Israel. And again, the truth is, no, I don't have to support people who want my destruction. That's ludicrous. I don't care how many people are there. All right? If you want our help, I'll help you. But you can't wish our destruction and then expect me to help you. Okay? I'm sorry. We're not there anymore. That is immoral. Totally immoral. Peace, according to Torah, has to be with truth. It has to be with truth. It's not just about not fighting. It's not peace. Peace, according to Torah, is morality. When everybody believes in morality, that's peace. And by the way, the end game of the Jewish people, I know there's some non-Jews listening in here, the end game by the Jewish people is not that you become Jewish. Not at all. Not at all. The Beit HaMikdash, when the third temple is built, it's not a place of mine and war. Exactly the opposite. The house will be a house of prayer for all nations. All nations. If all nations, then can't everyone be Jewish? See, our end game is peace, that everybody recognizes the truth of God and the truth of objective morality, not subjective morality. Not morality that I decide today is moral and yesterday's not. Or today is yes, tomorrow's no. That's not morality. That's opinion. Now, I can't today go into somebody's house and say, oh, you're not keeping Shabbat, so I hate you. No, that's not what Pinchas was teaching at all. There was no hatred there. None at all. And as my father says, kill him with kindness. Right? When you're arguing with someone, the point is not to prove them wrong, you're wrong and therefore you're stupid. No. The facts are not with you and therefore change. You're not representing truth and therefore change. It's not to prove them that they're worse than you or not worse than you. The point is to get them to understand the truth and have them change in order to be a moral person, not to insult them or embarrass them or anything like that. That is not what we're looking for ever. So we are definitely losing the way. In other words, Pinchas killed those two people, but his emotions were much less than ours when we're arguing with each other, with people politically. I see it all the time on Facebook. People are attacking people personally. Don't attack people personally. There's no reason to attack people personally. You can attack their views. You can argue with their views. You can attack their ideology and their philosophies. And again, here's the kicker. And by the way, Korach, and we have a bunch of Parshat in the Torah that have to do with this issue of arguing, of arguing and disagreement. Korach, right, the person who argued with Moshe Rabbeinu, and the ground opened up and swallowed him, right? Korach was the first first real machloket, right? Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah. There's no machloket about how to keep things, right? Korach was the first person to create machloket, create arguments, and for no reason. Talmud says that when you're arguing, if you're arguing l'shem shamayim, the whole Talmud is filled with arguments. The whole Talmud is filled. The Gemara is filled with arguments. Arguments are good and healthy because we're trying to find the truth. When arguments are trying to find the truth, that's a healthy thing. That's a fantastic thing to do. You should not agree when it's immorality. Where do I see that in the Torah, in the Bible, by the way? Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Bavel. It talks that everybody was unified. They were united. Everybody was united doing the same thing. And they built this tower to challenge God. Well, that wasn't good. And what was the punishment? According to our tradition, Hashem mixed up their languages. They could not talk to each other anymore. Because that kind of unity is not the unity that we want. We're not aiming for unity that will cause immorality. That is not good unity. That is bad unity. Good unity is when we join together, everybody, by the way, all religions and all peoples, in order to uplift morality in the world. And yes, morality has to be defined and not by man. If the morality is defined by man, woman, or child, it's not morality, it's opinion. Okay? So therefore, what we can learn today is the idea of peace is not, white doves in the sky and balloons and having the presidents of countries and Nobel Peace Prizes. You want to talk about lying? You want to talk about a bad peace? When Yasser Arafat, a man who has so much blood dripping on his hands, arch terrorist who murdered people around the world, when the world gives this man the Nobel Prize For peace. You know that the word of peace has been perverted. You know that. A man to the day he died was hungry for Jewish blood. A man who killed everyone he could find, Jewish certainly. Leon Klinghoffer was a handicapped Jew on a boat. Nothing to do with Israel. Threw him off the boat. The kids in Ma'alot threw little kids off windows, third-story windows. This is a man who the world gave a Nobel Peace Prize to. This is just how bad and how perverted the word peace can get, like everything else, by the way. Everything can be perverted by people according to their personal wants and desires. Even Judaism. A person could use Judaism. I didn't make this up. The Mishnah says it. You don't use the Torah, you don't use the Torah for a weapon to dig. I showed you so. No, it's to uplift, not to bring down. And that's what we learn from this part. The idea of peace has nothing to do with feeling good. Oh, let's be united. United is only good when it's uniting for good, not uniting for bad. So that's what I feel that this week's Parsha, the lesson of this week's Parsha is that the definition of peace is not what you think, or what I think, or what we feel. Okay? In 1967, when we gave the Temple Mount over to the Muslims for the sake of, peace, that is not peace. That is immoral, that is war, and it won't cause the world to love us. What was the result of giving the Temple Mount over to the Muslims in 1967? UNESCO saying it's a Palestinian site. What is the prize of giving the Muslims an open entry to the Cave of the Patriarchs and closing it to Jews? It's UNESCO saying the Cave of the Patriarchs is a heritage place for the Palestinians. You didn't bring peace and truth. You brought lies and dishonor. It's what Churchill said to Chamberlain when he signed a treaty with Hitler. Stacy, thank you for sharing. Caroline, thank you for sharing. Right? Chamberlain signed a peace treaty with Hitler, and Churchill says to him, you had a choice between honor and war. You chose dishonor, and you will have war. There is no honor in signing peace treaties or making peace treaties with evil people. No honor in that. You're not a better person. You're a worse person. When you kick Jews out of their homes in Judea and Samaria and hand the areas over to people who want to destroy you, that is not a peaceful action. That is not a moral action. That is an immoral action. And it will not bring peace, it will bring war. And that's been proven, track record in Israel. Every time we made a peace treaty, the terrorism went up to the sky. Because as Pinchas showed us, peace does not mean, oh, I feel good. Peace means bringing the truth out there. And I think that's what we can learn from this parsha. And again, I wanted to reiterate what I said. There is absolutely no permission for anyone to take the law into their own hands today, unless your life is on the line, of course, and do what Pinchas did. Do not get the wrong message from me. That is absolutely not allowed in any stretch of any imagination, both in terms of halacha, Jewish law, and in terms, obviously, of legal law of Israel. Okay? Sonia, it was a big mistake, but it was worse than a mistake because it was done by an ideology, not by an oops. He didn't do it by oops. He did it by an ideology. And we're paying for that mistake daily. So, as long as we, let me put it this way, as long as Israel is fighting wars with this false morality, as long as we're fighting wars with the false morality of the world, you can't use too much power when you're fighting at people who want to destroy you, because it's, what do they call it, excessive force. There is no such thing as excessive force where they're trying to kill me. Okay? When a guy comes into my house, God forbid, with a knife or with a gun, I'm not going to pull a knife or a gun out to kill him. I'm going to pull everything I got out to kill him. There's no such thing as excessive force when someone's coming to kill me. That is immoral. That is lacking of all compassion for the people who are the victims. There is no such thing as excessive, no such thing as someone's coming to kill me, Jane, you crush them. As swiftly as you can without any compassion. That's not compassion for your enemies. Simply, Judaism doesn't believe in that kind of compassion. And that is what Pinchas showing us the definition of peace, or the lack of definition of peace. Now what happens right afterwards? Kadosh Baruch Hu starts counting all of Bnei Israel again. Right? We have a whole counting of the nation of Israel. Because killing someone is a shock. It's a shock more than everything. It's not good to kill. It's not a good thing to kill. If we have to, we have to. And if you don't kill when you have to, that's immoral. If someone's coming to kill you and you don't kill them, that is immoral, according to objective Torah morality. Not what I feel. If someone's coming to kill you, you don't kill them first, that is immoral. I'm going to go a little further, and I don't want to be the person in the driver's seat to make the decision. But if terrorists kidnap our boys, or our men and women, or our boys and girls, and demand that we release terrorists in order to get our boys out, morally, we're not allowed to do that. Why? Because the terrorists are going to kill more people. But let's even go further. They're not letting, live people out for live terrorists. They're giving our boys dead who they murdered or killed, and they want us to release live terrorists. It is totally and completely immoral to do that. Completely and totally immoral to do that. You cannot do that morally, according to the Torah. It is wrong to do. All right? Can you wash these off and pass it back to me? All right? And that is the point of this week's Parsha. The definition of peace is not, let's blow balloons and sing kumbaya. Wrong. So, what do we do now? Well, as long as the governments of the world, for that matter, are not fighting wars with objective morality, and for real desire for peace, which can only be with truth. Okay, if ISIS is slaughtering people around the world, and you're talking your way through in the White House or in the State Department or in England or in France or anywhere else, you are immoral. The world should be bombing the hell out of ISIS. And the Muslims who they're killing are not my friends. Okay? But that is totally irrelevant. It is totally immoral what they're doing. And if the world is not going to do anything about it, they haven't learned a damn thing in 75 years. Okay? So, I don't want to hear any more of this moral talk when it comes to Israel fighting its enemies. Okay, there simply is no such thing as excessive force when someone's coming to kill us. All right, and talking about excessive force, people, besides the horrible news today, I had a really pretty insane week. We got out to altogether this week, around 2,500 soldiers. 2,500 soldiers this week. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, I don't remember what it was already, we got out to 500 Border Patrol guys. The guys who are on the Temple Mount constantly. They finished their last maneuver, they're getting their berets, and it was scorching hot outside. It was 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was literally dripping. And they called us up, and we brought the truck to stand in the other truck. We bought ice creams, we bought cold drinks, we bought cakes. There was enough. There were around 500 soldiers. We gave out 890 of these ice creams, and it was amazing. The whole day cost around $4,500. We still haven't made up everything yet, but we're definitely looking to do so. So I just want to sum up again. Pinchas teaches us the real definition of peace, and it's not killing people. The point is, peace does not mean that nothing is going on, that everybody is laying back and nobody's hurting anyone else. Incorrect. Peace means truth. Peace means fighting for truth. Peace is meaning that truth prevails. Not just not doing anything. And again, nobody has a right to do what Pinchas did. Don't think for a second that I'm talking about that. The message here is not that. The message is that peace is not doing nothing. Peace is not fighting. Does not mean not fighting. Okay? If there's immorality in the world, you're not fighting that immorality, you are immoral. That is not peace. That is immoral. That is cruel. That is not compassionate. That's not compassion. Israel not taking over Gaza and Judea and Samaria again, when they see, first of all, the Arabs are suffering there, but that's not my point right now. But you see that terrorism is blossoming there, then that's not peace, and it's not moral to anyone. Those who signed in, it's going to go over the news today. Unfortunately, 3 Muslim terrorists went onto the Temple Mount with guns and murdered 2 Israeli policemen. And I wrote this in my face, and I'll write it again. You know something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong when Israel has enough security forces to make sure that no Jew utters a prayer on the Temple Mount. And the second he moves his lips, they jump him and throw him off and arrested him. You know something's wrong when they're out there to catch a Jew praying on the Temple Mount, but they don't catch a Muslim terrorist who walks on the Temple Mount with a rifle. This is the problem. This is the mixed up of morality. Mixed up idea of peace. We don't want to make the Muslims angry. What? We want to pray? You tell me we don't want to make the Muslims angry, you're not allowing Jews to pray? That is warped morality. That is the opposite of peace. And that has to stop. That has to stop. You know, 2 weeks ago, and someone who's on here right now actually filmed the wedding, there was a guy who got married on the Temple Mount. Illegally. And he's under investigation now by the Israeli forces. Right or wrong is totally irrelevant to me. But as long as Israel is not hunting down these terrorists and terminating them, and are being bothered by a Jew who got married on the Temple Mount, until that is happening, until that warped priority is going on, until we're worrying about the emotions of the Waqf on the Mufti on the Temple Mount, we're worrying about his feelings and we're negating the Jewish feelings and the history to the Temple Mount. Number one, you cannot be disappointed when UNESCO says it's not ours. Sorry, that's our ingredient. Number two, until we stop acting like that, unfortunately, we're going to continue burying our sons and daughters. God forbid. Because we're not fighting evil. We're trying to appease them. And that is the worst thing that we can do, and that is the message of Pinchas. When you appease evil, then you're actually creating war and evil. And right after, by the way, I'm going to very quickly finish up. Right after that, they were talking about all the holidays of the nation of Israel. And guess what a center subject was in those holidays? The land of Israel. The land of Israel. The whole rest of the Parshat is talking about the land of Israel, what we do here in the land of Israel. Now I'm going to say this again. If we don't stand up for ourselves, the Jewish people in the land of Israel, if we don't stand up for it, this is ours by right. Also by might, but by right. Historical, religious, and national right. Okay? You could take the Tanakh, the Bible, right there. There's our right. The whole Bible, the whole history of the Bible, everything. Nobody denies it. We pick that book up, say, this is my right. When we don't do that, our enemies are fabricating history. They have no kings. Palestine had no kings in the past. They had no holy cities, no any cities at all. There wasn't such a Palestinian nation in history. What do they have? So when we don't stand up for the truth, the lie will prosper. When we're shy about the truth, the lie will, well, we know the land's ours, but in order to make peace, we're going to give it away. No. That is evil. That's wrong. That's immoral. If you are being threatened by people who say, give us your land or we kill you, kill them first. If they want to live here in peace, beautiful, live in peace. But you don't give away your homeland to people who are threatening to kill you if you don't give away your homeland. That is not moral, it is not peaceful, it's not compassionate, it's wrong. And until we don't stand up for that truth, unfortunately we're going to have to keep on hearing this news because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. These two, and by the way, the terrorists were Israelis. They were Israeli Muslims. They were not Palestinians and no rights and all the story of freedom fighters and all the other junk. They were Israeli citizens with full rights. And until we realize that the problem here is not about land, and it's not about rights, and it's not about Palestine, and it's about a radical philosophy that wants the Jews dead and Israel gone, we are going to keep on losing the most precious of all. And that, to me, is the message of Pinchas. All right, I was saying to you this week, we got to over 2,500 soldiers, and we basically, it was this week, that just the other day was around $4,500. This whole week was around $8,000 this whole week. We still have not covered the whole thing, so anybody watching this, and I always love your likes, and please do share the video, give people around the world a little bit of Torah before Shabbat. I just put the link up right here for donating to our project for the IDF. Please hit the link and join me and donate whatever you can. There's a whole list of donations you can do. Donate whatever you can and help me, please, keep up the efforts and say thank you and show appreciation to IDF soldiers. If there are any questions, I'll take them right now. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off and wishing you, let me show you what I got going here, just for those of you who are watching. This is what we call meat for Shabbat. I'm slow cooking them. You want them to be nice and juicy. No dried out steak. No well done steak in my house, people. We're talking about medium to medium rare. All right, wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbat from the beautiful, stunning hills of Judea, Israel. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please hit the link and join me and donate there. Definitely share the video and enjoy, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.